Before we dive in, if you've ever wondered what modern naval warfare really looks like, not the Hollywood version, not the press briefings, but the cold, mechanical truth of how a warship disappears from the surface of the Earth in under 5 minutes, this story is for you. Drop a comment right now. Did you think a warship could be hunted 3,800 miles from the battlefield? I want to know what you think before you finish watching. Because what happened south of Sri Lanka in the pre-dawn darkness of March 4th is not just a military story. It is a story about miscalculation. About a captain who did everything right and still never saw it coming. In the first 48 hours after Operation Iron Verdict launched on the evening of February 26, every Iranian naval commander in the Gulf faced the same brutal equation. The Persian Gulf was gone. The Strait of Hormuz was a kill zone. United States air power had turned every surface corridor into a graveyard. CENTCOM had not issued a warning. CENTCOM had issued a destruction order, spoken plainly at the Pentagon podium. The objective was the erasure of the Iranian Navy. Not degradation. Erasure. So the math was simple: move your most valuable asset out of the theater, before the theater swallows it. Put distance between your ship and the war. Put ocean between your hull and the jets hunting everything that moved in Gulf waters. 3,800 miles of open Indian Ocean. International waters. No declared exclusion zone. No legal framework for interdiction. A neutral sea, where the laws of armed conflict as written offered protection to a warship flying a sovereign flag. Sail far enough, and you are safe. That calculation was wrong by exactly 40 nautical miles. Let me tell you about the ship that made that calculation. The IRIS Dena, a Mudge-class frigate commissioned in late 2021, was not just a warship. It was a statement. 96 meters of domestically engineered steel, displacement of 480 tons. The product of nearly 2 decades and over $270 million of Iranian defense investment. Built specifically to prove that Western sanctions could not stop Iran from fielding a capable blue water navy. And honestly, pause for a second and ask yourself, could any sanctioned nation actually pull that off? The Dena carried 6 NOR anti-ship missiles, subsonic sea skimmers with a range pushing 170 kilometers, terminal guidance. Warheads capable of mission-killing a destroyer with a single strike. It carried CIWS point defense systems, a 76mm main gun, anti-submarine torpedoes, a full 3D phased array radar suite, a flight deck, and a crew of 165 men. Was it a match for a Virginia-class submarine or a carrier air wing? No surface ship is. But that was never the point. The point was what it represented, the backbone of Iranian naval modernization. A symbol that Iran had built something real. When the Pentagon press corps heard the word prize ship, this was why. Here is where the story turns. In late February, the Dena was not anywhere near the Persian Gulf. It was finishing a multinational naval exercise in the Bay of Bengal, Eastern Shield 2026, hosted by the Indian Navy. Attended by warships from over 40 nations. 2 weeks of formation drills, flag diplomacy, and open water exercises with navies that had nothing to do with the war building 2,000 miles to the west. When Operation Iron Verdict launched on February 26, the Dena was already westbound, pointing toward the war. Someone in Tehran made a decision. Turn around. Don't go home. Don't sail back into the theater where US aircraft were already cataloging Iranian hulls for destruction. Reverse course. Point south. Point east. Put the Indian Ocean between the ship and the kill zone. And so the Dena ran. Southbound through calm seas, past the southern tip of India, curving into open water south of Sri Lanka. 40 nautical miles south of Gal. 3,800 miles from the Strait of Hormuz. International waters. Neutral sea. The commanding officer had every reason to believe the math worked in his favor. Here's a question for you, and I genuinely want your thoughts in the comments. If you were that captain, would you have made the same call? Turn away from the war, get your crew to safety, buy time? Most people would say yes. It sounds rational. It sounds like the right decision. It was the last decision he ever made as a commanding officer. Here is what the Dena's captain did not account for. A Los Angeles-class attack submarine running at patrol speed on electric drive generates less acoustic noise than the ambient biological life in the water column around it. It produces no radar return. No infrared signature above ocean background. No radio emissions when it chooses silence. It does not exist until it decides to exist. The Mark 48 ADCAP heavyweight torpedo it carries has an operational range of 50 kilometers at 55 knots. Wire-guided through the mid-course phase, autonomous in the terminal sprint. When the active seeker goes live, the target surface ship has approximately 126 seconds from first acoustic detection. Do the math with me. The Dena at 15 knots has a turning radius under emergency rudder of around 430 meters. Maximum speed surge from cruise to flank takes 90 seconds for a frigate of her tonnage. In 126 seconds, with a crew responding perfectly, no hesitation. No seconds lost to disbelief, she can displace her center of mass roughly 500 meters from her original track. The Mark 48's terminal seeker cone covers 800 meters. The geometry does not change. The captain's options did not exist. He was not 3,800 miles from the war. He was 50 kilometers from the solution to his ship. CENTCOM had been watching the Dena from the moment it reversed course near the Indian coast. Not because it was doing anything illegal. Because a warship belonging to a nation at war with the United States had broken from its homebound track and begun an evasive transit through the northern Indian Ocean. That kind of movement generates intelligence tasking at every level of the command chain. P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft flying overlapping search patterns. Dropping passive sonobuoys that transmit acoustic data in real time had maintained continuous track coverage across the Dena's predicted transit corridor. The ship was running a predictable geometry, south to clear the subcontinent, then curving west when the crew judged conditions safe. A fleeing ship runs predictable lines. Predictable lines have intercepts. The attack submarine was vectored to the intercept track on the morning of March 3rd. It had been in passive trail, following without closing. Listening without being heard for 11 hours when the execute order arrived in the encrypted channel. 0421 hours, March 4th, pre-dawn. Force 2C state. COM. The commanding officer of the submarine had been at periscope depth since 0300. The contact was 12,000 yards to the northwest. Steady course, steady speed. The fire control solution had not materially changed in 4 hours. He read the execute order. He confirmed weapons release authority with his executive officer. He turned to his fire control team. One target. Bearing northwest. Aboard the Dena at 0426 hours, nothing was wrong. The sea was flat. The pre-dawn air was cool. 2 engineers had come topside for a breath before the equatorial heat returned. The bridge watch officer was logging a routine position report. The ship was running without tactical alert, no active sonar transmitting, because there was nothing to search for in international waters 3,800 miles from a declared war zone. If the Dena's sonar operator was actively monitoring passive receivers at that moment, and there is no certainty that anyone was, he would have had 8 seconds of warning. A faint tonal. A bearing drift that didn't belong to ocean noise. 8 seconds is not enough time to sound general quarters. It is enough time to understand what is about to happen. The Mark 48 struck the Dena at the stern, below the waterline, detonating its 295-kilogram warhead directly against the propulsion section. The weapon is engineered not merely to breach a hull, but to break a ship, the pressure wave propagating upward through the water column beneath the keel, flexing the entire structure beyond its design tolerance in a single pulse. The Dena's stern rose several meters out of the Indian Ocean. Then it dropped back. Both propulsion shafts. Both main generators. The rudder assembly. The aft damage control stations. All of it ceased to function as a structural unit in the same fraction of a second. The flooding that followed came not through one breach but through every point where the keel had failed, a distributed catastrophe that no damage. Control team, dragged from sleep at 0426 with no warning, could have addressed in the time available. The Dena's distress call went out at 0431. 5 minutes after impact. The Sri Lankan Navy, operating out of the southern headquarters at Gal, launched 2 patrol vessels and a maritime aircraft to the coordinates given in the transmission. They did not find the IRIS Dena at those coordinates. They found oil spreading across flat water. They found debris. They found 28 survivors, many wounded. Several critically, floating in the calm pre-dawn sea or clinging to wreckage from a warship that had reached the harbor floor before the sun came up. 79 bodies were recovered from the water. 58 remain missing. Total time from torpedo impact to the Dena's loss of all communications, less than 5 minutes. I want you to sit with that for a moment. 58 families in Tehran, in Bandar Abbas, in Isfahan, waiting. Not knowing whether their son, their husband, their father, is among the confirmed dead or among the ones the ocean has not returned. Leave a comment if this hits different than you expected. Because it should. The tactical outcome is recorded. But 3 questions came out of that pre-dawn stretch of the Indian Ocean that no Pentagon briefing has yet resolved. First, the precedent. The Dena was sunk in international waters, outside any declared exclusion zone, 40 nautical miles from a neutral nation. If the United States Navy will hunt and kill an Iranian frigate in Sri Lankan waters, the message to every Iranian asset transiting the Red Sea or the Gulf of Aden is unambiguous: there is no safe ocean. There is no distance that constitutes sanctuary. That message may deter. Or it may force Tehran into an escalation it has, until now, chosen to avoid. Second, Hormuz. As of March 4, not a single Iranian vessel was underway in the Arabian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. 1/5 of the world's daily oil supply transits that strait. It is effectively closed. The US Navy can sink Iran's surface fleet. But who reopens a strait that Iran can threaten with mines and coastal missile batteries even without a single ship at sea? No one at the Pentagon has answered that publicly. Third, the 58. The Dena left her last port with 165 crew. 28 survived. 79 were recovered. 58 are still out there, or they aren't. And their families don't know yet. The IRIS Dena was Iran's prize ship. The hull can be replaced. The missiles can be rebuilt. The radar systems, the engineering, the institutional knowledge, Iran's defense industrial base can produce another frigate. What cannot be rebuilt is the illusion that distance equals safety. Iran moved its most modern warship 3,800 miles from the theater of war, into neutral international waters, specifically to escape American power. The United States Navy followed it there with a submarine no one ever detected, and sank it before dawn while its crew was sleeping. No ocean is far enough. No calculation about international law changes the geometry of a Mark 48 at 50 kilometers. The Dena's captain believed he was safe. He was 40 nautical miles from Sri Lanka, and 50 kilometers from the end of his ship. Quiet death. The first since World War II. If you've made it this far, what do you think Iran does next? No navy. Closed strait. 58 sailors still missing. The next 72 hours will define what this conflict becomes. Drop your answer below. Subscribe if you want to be here when it unfolds. Stay vigilant. Stay informed.